Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is Discerning What is True. I wanted to talk about something that's been in the news here for the last week, um, and the day being the 15th day of February 2023. Um, what is going on with the railroads here in this country? Um, well, part of the reason I know a little bit about it is simply because as a little child, I can remember, or I've been told, um, we lived right beside the railroad track when I was young. And me and my brother got excited every time we heard that train blowing its horn, and we would watch it as it went by as children. So, that part was part of me. Then that's a fascination for me as a child, especially a boy. And lo and behold, we moved to another place in Athens, Georgia, and there really wasn't much going on there. And we wasn't near the railroad track, although I was always conscious of the railroad track as even a boy, looking for the train, you see. And so what happened was simply we moved up to North Carolina, and we were there for probably 6 months or so. And I can remember getting up when I heard the train blowing its horn in the morning. That was sometimes 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would watch it half asleep. And then I've always been involved in it. I have a railroad atlas here of the railroads that are actually in the southeast part of the country here in the United States. And I have many books on railroads, history of it, and have also the historical guide to the North American railroads here, a guide that was put out back in the 1990s, basically to do with what we call all the railroads that are no longer in business. They would be either bankrupt or bought out. Uh, and I was naturally, as a child, continue as I got to become a teenager. I also was involved in it because my dad had a place of business in North Carolina, and the railroad track was right behind the business. So I got again to watch the train go by as a teenager. And again, I had the opportunity. I would go outside and watch it go by. So I was bitten by the train deal. But you know, let's get to the point what's going on, especially with the issue in Ohio. Uh, and let's just kind of set it up here and explain to you what's going on in the last year or so. You see, the railroad workers were going to go on strike last year, and basically there's 4 or 5 major railroads here in the United States. There's Norfolk Southern, CSX, which is in the eastern part of the country, and then you have in the western part, you have Burlington Northern Santa Fe, which is a merger of Burlington Northern and a Santa Fe Railroad. And then you have the UP, which is Union Pacific Railroad. And Union Pacific Railroad has bought out many railroads also. It bought out the Southern Pacific Railroad. It bought out the, what is it, not the Central Pacific. They bought the Northern Pacific, it bought out also. And so it just kept its name, Union Pacific. Norfolk Southern is a merger of Norfolk and Western, and the Southern Railroad here in the South. And then you had basically the CSX, which is basically the Chessie system, which is the C&O, the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad, and the Seaboard line, which was part of the merger with Atlantic Coast Line and Seaboard at one time here in the Southeast, all the way up to Washington, D.C. So it's amazing what's happened. The Burlington Northern is actually part of the old Northern Pacific, also part of the Burlington Quincy Railroad out of Chicago. All those merged. And then you had a railroad who recently is, I don't know if it's been agreed upon, but it was part of the Kansas City Southern, which was running the line, basically the north-south line between the Mississippi River. Um, It used to be the Illinois Central was part of that, and then you had the Gulf Mobile and Ohio railroads, and then they merged and became that. This is what's happened. So here's my problem. The the National Transportation Board, NTB, this government of our country, basically approves almost, or the Surface Transportation Board, I guess it's STB. Anyway, they allow these mergers to go on, and I don't think these mergers are actually advantageous to the people always. There were many companies in the past, and on this map here, it will show many routes that are no longer used. They pulled up the rails that once were here in the state of South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Especially a lot of them have been pulled up in Florida, um, and they're no longer useful because of the interstate system that came through and built in the 1950s. That made a change dramatically, although airplanes made a difference too at that point also. But railroads are important for this country because simply it moves what we call heavy freight, by cars. And it's amazing when you think about this invention back in the early 1800s, how they thought about building track and putting these wheels on top of track in order to go down a rails. You see. Hold on a second.